All right. Hey, guys, we are back. I've got today with me Kevin Garner. We met about a year ago.
Yeah.
We're neighbors in the same neighborhood, but we met really from connecting on social media, if I remember right.
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
And Kevin is running for state representative.
That's right.
District 24.
District 24.
Awesome. So tell me about your district, your background. What made you decide that you wanted to run for office?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
So District 24 is the best district in the state. It covers downtown and midtown Kansas City. So think 6th Street to 47th Street. So before you hit the plaza, state line to Troost are essentially the boundaries.
Yeah.
So really an incredible hub for the economy, innovation, culture, arts, and so much more. So it's an incredible space. Right now, it is represented by Representative Emily Weber, who instead of running for her final term is running for city council in 2027. So I raised my hand and said, why not? Right?
Yeah.
Because right now we are in a unique time. I feel that we need folks who are willing to stand up for the values that downtown and midtown residents hold, especially against the constant attacks that are against Kansas City and Jefferson City, while also being willing to work with anyone who wants to help our residents.
Yeah, very cool. Now, you're from here in town, right?
Yes, so I've been in Kansas City since 8th grade. I grew up north of the river, but most of my adult life has been in downtown midtown area.
Awesome. So let's just dive into it. So if you win, what are your 3 biggest fights that you're walking into Jeff City that directly hit us here in Kansas City?
A lot. So 3. Well, the first is the budget.
Yeah.
So what we've seen over the last few years is that the majority party has continued to push for tax cuts for the wealthiest Missourians. And as a result of that, the budget is being balanced on the backs of cuts to seniors, to veteran services, to education and public schools, to healthcare policies. So the biggest fight right now is going to be an impact to Kansas Cityans because they're not going to see the tax dollars that they pay come back to us in vital services that many people rely on. Second of all, are the constant attacks on LGBTQ plus Kansas Cityans and Missourians. From Mean Girls, they're obsessed with us. Right. And so, this is an instance where the majority party runs on small government, yet they are trying to dictate where people pee, where people can dribble a ball, what can be on people's licenses, what they can say and what they cannot say in our schools. And so really, the Democratic Party, which I'm running as a member of the Democratic Party, is fighting for government to stay out of people's lives. And as a member of the LGBTQ community, I'm not looking for special favors. I'm just looking to live my life. And that's the same go with the rest of Missourians. But, unfortunately, Missouri has been known to have the most anti-LGBTQ bills filed and attempted to be passed. The incredible work of organizations such as Promo, the LGBT Chamber, and just everyday Missourians who go and testify have really helped us to push back. But we know that's going to be a fight. And the third fight will be defending our public schools. So both in terms of properly funding them, but also making sure that we are not selling out our residents to give away tax dollars to private schools, as we saw in the last budget supported by the governor and the majority party. So defending public schools is another big one.
Awesome. I identify with all of that.
I'm glad to hear that.
So kind of looking at the KC versus Jefferson City power struggle, do you believe that Kansas City should get local control of the police department back? And if so, how do we do that?
Yeah. So yes, we should absolutely have local control. And unfortunately, we see a step backward happening because in the most recent session, we have now implemented state control over the St. Louis Police Department. So we're moving in the wrong direction. And again, I think that this just comes back to another example where we, both myself and the Democratic Party, believe that localities should be able to govern best knowing the specific needs of their residents. And so governor appointees to the state police board, give us less flexibility here in Kansas City to address what unique public safety concerns we have. So in terms of how it gets done, I mean, the quick answer is elect more Democrats. But also I think it's trying to build bridges with the majority party to remind them that the city of Kansas City offers this state so much. It is a economic and innovation hub, not only for our state, but for our region. And so we are a giver city, and we're fine with that. We're fine that our tax dollars, the jobs that we create, go to provide services in other parts of the state who may not like us, but we still believe that those folks should be able to, function and live on a day-to-day basis. So reminding folks of the value that Kansas City brings to the table, and that, the state should just stay out and just let us be.
Yeah. So what do you say to the voters who feel that the new map was designed to just shut Kansas City up at the federal level?
Well, it was.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was.
Yeah.
It's wild to think that when the map that was previously passed, after it's always been done after the census, was passed by a Republican supermajority, was signed into law by a Republican governor, and we were fine with having traditionally 6 Republicans and 2 Democratic representatives. This is another example of where, instead of the majority party listening to its voters, listening to concerns, when we were going around our districts, no one was asking us to change the maps.
Right.
No one thought about that. But at the end of the day, instead of answering to the concerns of everyday Missourians, Donald Trump literally called the leadership of the Missouri Republican Party and said, I want to change this because our policies are making people not be able to afford housing, not be able to afford groceries. Their wages are stagnant or going down. More people are unemployed. And so we need to find a way to rig the game. And that's what happened. So it was absolutely meant to squash the voice of Kansas City. An example of this is State Representative Wick Thomas, who represents District 19 in the northeast part of the city in the west side. Their district is split into 3 congressional districts. So it's only 37,000 people, and amongst them, they would now represent 3 congressional districts. And that's wild. And so again, we need to do better. We need to allow voters to have their say at the ballot box. We need to have Kansas City have fair representation in Washington, D.C. to bring vital resources back here. And we need to get those maps fixed.
Yeah. Well, and, kind of stemming off from that, the voters having their voice heard, we can even talk about this revisiting of the abortion issue.
Absolutely.
Because, they were heard.
Yes.
And now we're back.
Yes.
So what do we do there?
Yeah. Wow. So first of all, at the end of the day, voters need to hold lawmakers accountable. And when 52% of Missourians said that we believe that women should have the ability to make their own medical decisions, we should respect that. And I think it's significant to remember that 52% of the voters voted to protect abortion rights in Missouri. That means that a significant number of those voters also voted for Donald Trump.
Right.
They also voted for Josh Hawley. And so there are conservatives, there are moderates, there are non-affiliated people who might not call themselves Democrats or liberals, but they still believe in the government staying out of people's private medical decisions.
Right.
And so it requires folks, especially who are in that blend, to hold their representatives accountable who went to overturn the will of the people. And the second thing is, as frustrating as it is, this will be back on the ballot again. And so we are needing people to go out, this time to vote no on Amendment 3. Last time was voting yes. This time is voting no on Amendment 3. Get engaged with local organizations who are going to be working really hard to make sure that we provide basic health care for women in the state.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Now, next time we're going to talk a little bit about like crime, safety, and the chaos that we see downtown, right? All this chaos that we see. So when you see clips of, the sideshows and the dirt bikes and all of this downtown, and somebody says, oh, it's lawless, it's a mess. What's your response?
Yeah, as a resident of Kansas City, it is frustrating.
Yeah.
Right. These are folks who are breaking the law. They are not, they're not out just enjoying their evening. Right. They're causing disturbance. And even as someone, as residents of West Plaza, we're seeing these things come further and further south. And so, I appreciate the effort that's being done at the city level, that the police department and working in conjunction with the city are trying to enforce the laws as they are now. So absolutely. I think it's lawlessness. I think that we need to do everything we can to prevent folks from doing this in this first place and enforce the laws that exist, because we're seeing as an effect of this, we're also getting illegal guns off of our street. Yeah. We're seeing folks who already have warrants being arrested for more difficult crimes. And so I think ultimately, though, what this comes back to is we need to make sure that we strike a balance in our city between prevention and protection of when laws are broken. Yeah.
So what state level changes would you push for that residents here could feel in their neighborhoods to, in terms of safety?
In terms of safety, well, one, Missouri has become the wild, wild west when it comes to the lack of common sense gun control that we have in our state. And we've gone well past the conversation now of the limits or lack of limits of the Second Amendment, right? So we need to rein some things in and be a little bit more reasonable. There are some very common sense solutions that even if you ask the majority of gun owners, even the majority of the members of the National Rifle Association, they will support them.
Right.
A couple pieces of legislation include passing red flag laws that allow for individuals to temporarily not be allowed access to a gun because they may do a harm to themselves or to others. We need to require folks whose guns are lost or stolen to report them to the police, right? Because we also know those guns are then oftentimes used in the act of crime. That's not a law right now. We need to get weapons of war off of our streets. There is one thing to 100% allow folks, if they want to own a weapon in self-defense to protect themselves and their property. People want to go hunting. People want to use it for sporting. People want to use it for collecting. All of those things make complete sense.
Right.
We don't need automatic or semi-automatic weapons to do those things.
Right.
And so I think we can make our city a lot safer by having Jefferson City embrace common sense gun laws while still protecting people's right to defend themselves. I also think, again, we are in a budget crisis, but the more that we can fund programs that are based in Kansas City, that understand the unique needs of Kansas City, that encourages nonviolent intervention, that funds programs that provide good housing, good food, good education, because we know that those are all root cause issues of public safety. So it's one thing to provide greater funding for enforcement and the police and public safety officials. It's another to make sure it doesn't even get to that level.
Right.
And you do that with steady jobs, good wages, a roof over your head, and food on the table.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of lawmakers are talking about eliminating the state income tax and capping sales taxes.
Yeah.
Do you think that would help or hurt your regular Kansas City family in the long term?
Yeah. So the biggest concern is the current proposal doesn't cap the sales tax increase. Instead, what it would do is actually remove the current limitations that exist on sales taxes and put that in the hands of the legislature and not the voters. So while what sounds like great at first, you mean I don't have to pay any more money on my income taxes, right? Everyone, that sounds great.
Right.
But what it also then means is that we have to generate revenue for the state to function in some way.
Right.
And what that means is that Jefferson City will be increasing sales taxes. So if this passes, and it'll eventually go in front of the voters, if it gets through the legislature, it then will go in front of the voters, is to read the fine print. That means prepared to when you go to the grocery store, your prices are going to go up. When you go out to eat, your prices are going to go up. When you go to buy your medical products at CVS, just to make you feel a little bit better, those prices are going to go up. So what this does is it puts the burden on everyday average working Missourians who are already paying way too much for basic necessities, and removing a fairer system that tries to create balance. And I also want to note that, I know for a long time there's been a narrative of the Democratic Party being against any tax cuts, but that's further from the truth. And look, I think the Democratic Party needs to do a better messaging on this as well. But right now, Democrats in the state legislature have a bill that would make our tax code as it is fairer for working Missourians. And there is currently a bill filed by State Senator Patty Lewis that would eliminate the grocery sales tax, just like Kansas has now. So those are examples of good tax reforms.
Right.
The current proposal by Speaker John Patterson, who, by the way, he's pushing this law at the same time he's running for state Senate, thinking that this is a good way to help his efforts. But in actuality, it's going to hurt his constituents in Lee Summit. It's going to hurt people in Kansas City. It's going to hurt people in rural parts of the state as well. It's going to put an increased burden on senior citizens who don't currently pay an income tax, but they will pay at the grocery store.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's hit on like schools and classrooms, all this a little bit too. So we're seeing lawsuits and national accounts targeting local schools over LGBTQ plus inclusive materials in the classroom. Where do you stand? What do you think should and shouldn't be in the classroom here in Kansas City?
I ultimately think it is not a fine line in the sand that the state or the government should draw. At the end of the day, schools are meant to be a place that makes everyone feel welcome and included. That's the entire point of our public school system, right? And I think it says a lot that as a society, we're beginning to say that we're having conversations that we wouldn't have had 20 years ago. Certainly when I was growing up here in Kansas City, we were not having. And, we don't have teachers who are out there pushing some agenda. We don't have teachers who are trying to change the identity of students. Rather, we have teachers who are listening to their students, who are coming to them with questions and with feelings and just wanting to better understand themselves. And I trust our teachers to make the right decision about what conversations they should have with the students, what conversations they should share with the parents. And instead of having the government come in and say, you can't refer to a student by a certain name or pronoun, or you can't discuss certain content or material, is only hampering the entire point of public education, which is a place for learning about oneself, for learning about the world and the people around them. And so, it's tough to say where you draw that line exactly and what material or what should be done. But at the end of the day, I think we need to trust our teachers, and we also need to let kids be kids.
And let the teachers support those kids in finding themselves and finding how they exist in the world.
Exactly. And, we already have systems in place where if parents or students feel uncomfortable We have local school districts, we have superintendents, we have school boards, we have PTAs, we have community organizations. So there's already outlets that folks have if they have concern about what's being taught or what teachers are saying in the classroom, that can be utilized. There's no need for the government to come in to dictate at this level.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some amendments that could change how our schools are funded or how much debt they can take on. How do we protect both the taxpayer and the kids at school?
Yeah, I mean, I think public schools are something where, in terms of making financial decisions, should be one of the very last that we get to in terms of having conversations being cut, because I think we protect taxpayers by fully funding our public schools. When we fully fund our public schools, it means kids have greater opportunities to give back to their communities once they graduate. They either have greater opportunities whether they choose to go to college, or we choose to get them in a trade and they become a union plumber or pipe fitter or electrical worker, whatever it may be. So, I think where we come to protecting taxpayers needs to be about the fat, and public schools are not that. We absolutely should have greater oversight and transparency and accountability where our tax dollars are going to, including to public schools, to make sure that they're being spent on the things they need to be spent on, that the funds are going into the classroom, they're going to our teachers, they're going to aides, they're going to vital services. So we definitely need to have accountability. But I'm not as concerned about how our tax dollars are being spent on public schools. My concern goes more to we're not bringing enough revenue in to even fund them in the first place.
Yeah. So voters use initiatives to legalize. We talked about this before, but a little bit. But both abortion and marijuana, and to raise the minimum wage. Should lawmakers be able to undo these choices? There's fights about all of this.
So two things. One, no, lawmakers should not be overturning the will of the voters. These are lawmakers who are saying, I trusted the majority of the constituents, the majority of the voters who voted for me over my office. Right. I'm not standing up challenging the majority party of, did your voters know what they were doing when they voted for you? Right. So they're smart enough in the majority party's mind to vote for them. But now the voters aren't smart enough to make the best decision about the health care they receive, the wages they receive, paid sick leave, and so forth. So no, we should absolutely not be overturning the will of the voters. But second of all, again, I think there is also then a responsibility for all of us as voters is to ask ourselves the question of, I'm voting to protect women's medical decisions. I'm voting to get the government out of legalizing marijuana policy. I'm voting to protect unions. I'm voting to increase the minimum wage. I'm voting to give paid sick leave. But then we're also voting for individuals who oppose those very policies and also overturn them. So I think that there are some conversations that residents need to be having with themselves, myself included, everyone included, about, if we truly want these things, and if we're truly worried about the legislature overturning them, maybe start giving an opportunity to those who align more with those issues, and they won't be overturned in the first place. And in actuality, those will become law because the legislature will pass them or stop them from being banned in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know, do you feel like you see voters voting straight down the line by party without taking into consideration what that means as far as who they're voting for and what their values are?
Yeah, I think that we have become a society where we are in our bubbles, right? I'm in my own bubble where I live. I'm running in a seat that votes for the Democratic Party every single time. Right. And so districts have been drawn that allow that to happen. And we also all naturally just tend to flow to folks who agree with us. So I do think that we get into this position where we're going down the line. It's easier to do that, but I think it is a responsibility of all of us to take a step back, and maybe ultimately that doesn't change how you vote, but to begin having those questions. And that's why, what I'm wanting to do over this campaign is for it to be and what Leader Ani, the minority party leader, the Democratic Party leader in Missouri, Ashley Ani, this is a year of accountability. So the Missouri Republican Party has had a supermajority of the state for 20 years.
Right.
12 of those years they've had a governor as a Republicans, which means they've not needed a single Democratic vote to pass any of their legislation.
Right.
And it's time where, and this is true of even when I talk to Republicans and conservatives and moderates and independents who say that the Republican Party has had so much control and power in Jefferson City, there's been zero accountability and zero transparency. And if they had done such a good job governing the state, they would be running on how they made it more affordable, that people can have access to housing, that people's wages are better, that seniors have the services they need, and our schools have the funding they need. But they're not running on those things because they haven't done that in 20 years. So now I think is an opportunity for us to reset. It's not going to change overnight. People don't have to worry if they're worried about us becoming a New York or a California. That's not going to happen. Missouri has always been a moderate, traditionally state that has listened to all sides and has made the best decisions possible. We've, I think, veered too far one way. And so now, in order to have accountability, even if you are more conservative, we need to have more accountability at the state legislature. And that requires electing more Democrats and holding Republicans accountable for when they're overturning the will of the voters.
Yeah, absolutely. So some lawmakers want more tax cuts, even if it means a tighter state budget. Where's the line between tax relief and cutting your nose off to spite your face?
No, absolutely. Again, that's another example of where we've veered so far one way to where, last year the state legislature eliminated capital gains taxes in the state of Missouri. That is the biggest wealth giveaway to the wealthy that our state has ever done. Now we're also trying to balance the budget on the back of lower class, poorer, and working class Missourians by potentially repealing the income tax and making them pay more for sales taxes right now. So I think what it comes down to is we need to adopt a fairer tax code. And again, the Democratic Party has proposed these bills right now that would include tax cuts, but also makes it a fairer tax code. We need to make common sense choices about where we should get our funding from. We shouldn't be getting it from groceries. We shouldn't be getting it from unique services that people require to live off of. Instead, we need to have a fair tax code, because right now we are struggling at the state to even fund basic priorities. So we've passed the conversation of how far to cut taxes. Now we have to figure out how we get out of a mess that we're in, or otherwise we're going to be in the same situation Kansas was under Governor Brownback, when they eventually realized how far extreme they went and they pushed it back.
So what's your stance then on strengthening programs like SNAP and food as medicine initiatives, especially in neighborhoods that are food deserts? I mean, you have probably in that district, I'm assuming, some of those spots that would qualify as a food desert.
I was a product of a family who I was very fortunate to where I always knew where my next meal was coming from. But my parents were not products of that. And that's because both were raised by, at some point in their life, single mothers with many siblings. And so they relied upon hard work. They relied upon their faith. But at times they also relied upon food stamps. They relied upon churches coming and giving them shoes for Christmas. They relied upon the help of their neighbors in times of need. And so government is not always the solution, but government is not also always the enemy. And one of the ways that it can be a solution is a transparent, accountable SNAP and government assistance system,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone agrees that there are going to be abuses in the system.
Right.
But we can't just eliminate these systems because there are some bad apples, because there's a lot of people who need it. We have to remember that a number of folks who utilize these services are also working 1 or 2 jobs, but because wages have not kept up with housing or groceries or other basic needs, that they still need a little help.
Right.
And to me, the fact that as a state, we are willing to give massive tax breaks for the wealthiest, while then being perfectly comfortable snatching a meal out of a kid's lunch,
Right.
or making it harder for a person to pay for their housing, or more difficult for people to pay for childcare or afford childcare, that is an injustice. And it's not something that our state should be known for.
Right.
So absolutely, we need to address food insecurities. One way we do that, in addition to raising wages, is supporting incredible nonprofits that seek to address that. So here in District 24, as an example, there's Camby's Markets. Camby's is an incredible nonprofit that seeks to provide fresh foods in areas that currently may not have access to them. And so the state funding organizations such as that is an incredible first step of addressing that need.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we've gone over, the police department. We've gone over taxes. We've gone over school funding, ballot initiatives, all sorts of good things. Tell everybody watching how they can find you. Kind of give them a little rundown of when the election is, all the good stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So first and foremost, I wanted to be here not only just to talk about where I stand on these issues, but also to show folks that my campaign, and I'm encouraging others to meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
Right. So whether that's through a podcast, whether that's through a neighborhood meeting, whether that's knocking on their door, I'm willing to meet people where they're at, and also encourage folks to get involved and to vote.
Yeah.
Right. So on April 7th, which is not my election, on April 7th, there's the ballot initiative in the city of Kansas City to renew our earnings tax. Okay. Which makes up nearly half of the city's budget. Yeah. But also April elections, people rarely vote. Yeah. And those are the times that the decisions that are made are often the most impactful to our daily lives, whether they're these policies to fund our police and our firefighters and our roads, or our school boards. So I encourage everyone to go vote on April 7th, and just to get involved, to stay involved. Look, I know it's exhausting. Politics is frustrating, but it matters as well. For me personally, my first election will be on August 7th this year. And people can find out more about me at go to my website, garnerformissouri.com. You can also find me on most social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook. I've been forced to learn TikTok. Yeah. I'm not doing any dances or anything, but I know that there are a lot of folks who are engaged in that way. YouTube, all of them. Awesome. They can find me at Garner for Mo or Garner for Missouri that way. On my website, my cell phone number and my email are on there. Feel free to reach out. If you're a resident in District 24 or a small business owner in District 24, you can go to my website and click on Coffee with Kevin and find a time for us to get coffee together, and I can learn about the issues that matter to you. Beautiful. Yeah. And you got plenty of runway. You got time. So fill his calendar up. Exactly. Please do. Very good. Well, thanks for sitting down with me today. It was great to get to chat with you, and we'll look forward to hearing more before the 7th. Sounds great. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Bye.